Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. The meeting of Monday, November 22nd, 2021, the Boards of Directors regular meeting. I guess I am, that is calling the meeting to order. So if you'd follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, would you do the invocation, please?
Yeah, if you'd all bow your heads. As we give thanks this week during this Thanksgiving week, let us be mindful of all the things we do have to be thankful for, just simply by saying the Pledge of Allegiance that certifies and strengthens the fact that we give thanks for this wonderful country we live in. We give thanks for our hardworking staff and the work that they do to make sure that the five of us can make the best decisions possible. And we look forward to completing this year on a positive note and getting everybody back to work and healthy. Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Director Brett Eccles,
Here.
Director Arthur Perry, Secretary Arlene Schaefer. Here. Vice President Mike Schaefer,
Here.
President Bob Uten.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any other late communications besides Mr. Mosier?
Yes, Mr. President, we did receive written communications from Mr. Mosher last night, which was disseminated to the board.
That's all. That's all.
Yes.
Okay, then, and I don't believe we have any ceremonial matters or presentations. Okay, we'll go on into public comment. Sue, you wanted to address the microphone?
Thank you very much for letting me go because I need to go back to the wetlands and take care of the ducks. My name's Sue Lester. I am a member of the Citizen Advisory Committee, but I am not here tonight representing the Citizen Advisory Committee in any formal or informal fashion. I'm here as an individual, so I just want to make sure you guys know that. So the reason I'm here, and I feel bad because I never see Mike Carey, he's my friend, but I'm going to beat up CR&R a little bit. My mom lives in Hillcrest. There has been an issue with her trash getting picked up. This has been going on since June of this year, which is why when CR&R was being, had asked for a CPI increase, I was adamant that they didn't get it because I don't think they are giving the city and the residents the service that they have agreed to this point. Okay, so I realize that you guys have a series of bullet points that you're reviewing at your study session every month that is kind of trying to see if their service is getting better. Well, the actual number of homes being missed isn't on that list of what's being tracked. You guys are tracking complaints. And the reason I bring this up is I'm a caregiver to my mom who lives alone in Costa Mesa. She lives in Hillcrest. She's 80 years old. I go every Wednesday or every Thursday night to put out her trash and I bring it in every Friday. Last Friday, I went to a football game in Temecula. I didn't get to her house until 11. And I realized that not only has her trash not been picked up again, her whole track hadn't been picked up. The reason I know this is because anytime my mom's trash gets missed, I look across the street and I see theirs are all out. And the particular area of Hillcrest that she lives in, which is very close to Mike Carey, if their trash doesn't get picked up, they just leave their trash cans out and they'll leave them there until it gets picked up, whether it's a day, 2 days, a week, whatever. So at 11 o'clock at night, I drove around and I checked the trash on every street that I found trash cans, and I made sure that I could see trash in to make sure that there was trash in all the cans. I think there were 10 streets. I went home at 11 o'clock at night, ticked off, and I entered all 10 missed pickups with notes into the app so that CR&R would get the information. It's tedious. Sometimes it kicks you out, but it's really the easiest way to report. The reason that I report all the streets in that area when it happens is because a lot of the people that live there are my friends and they get irritated and they call me and complain. And I say, you know what, why don't you enter it into the app or call CRNR? And their attitude is, it doesn't do any good. So they just won't do it. At the end of the day, people want the best service they can get for the least amount of money. And I think that's true across the board, regardless of what type of service you're talking about. Saturday morning, my phone rings and it was a supervisor from CRNR. And they said, hi, this is so-and-so from CRNR. You reported like 10 streets that missed, that their trash didn't get picked up. And I said, yes, I did. And the next question that was given to me was, how do you know the trash didn't get picked up? And I said, well, because I have eyes. The people in that neighborhood do not bring their trash in. You can see that the trash is in there. She said, but how do you know? And then I got really mad and I told her how I knew, just like I told you guys. I told her it's been an issue in that neighborhood. And I don't feel that tracking the number of complaints you guys get is giving you the full picture of what's happening out there. Because according to the 10 houses or nine streets that I reported, 9 of the streets, the trash was both sides, didn't get picked up. On one of the streets, it was only not picked up on the north side or the south side of the street because that one street is an exit. So they probably caught that on the way out of the track. But my point is that when you guys are reviewing all the information, as far as if CRNR is hitting the marks on what they're supposed to be showing improvement in, it's going to show that there were 10 complaints that are reflective of the houses I reported. But we're talking about an average of 12 houses, 10 to 12 houses per street on each side times 10. That's close to 200 people that did not get their trash picked up. So I would encourage you and politely beg you to take that into consideration, because I have no problem giving people rate increases if they need them and they're warranted. But as an HR manager, you don't give an employee a raise because of what they are promising to do. They have to be doing everything that's already expected of them and then be willing to take on more to justify that increase. And because the increase is going to translate, I think, close to $630,000 and it wasn't budgeted, I'm not in favor of it at this point, because this has been a consistent problem. So whatever you have to do to ask about that, Scott was a great help. I spoke to Nabila, she was a great help. And the conversation I had with the supervisor at CRNR, it ended fine. She was very polite at the end, and I told her who I was and I told her how I knew, and we had a long conversation. It ended well. The trash got picked up. So my bone isn't even really to pick with her. It's more of, is CRNR and the management empowering their people to randomly call ratepayers and ask them questions like that when they took the time to enter the information in the app with notes? I think if that happens, it's going to discourage people from calling. And I think that's the last thing that we need. So thank you. I'll wind it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I think the other public comments we have are for individual items later in the agenda. So at this time, we're going to adjourn to closed session. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code 54956.9 D1, Steve Hodges versus Costa Mesa Sanitary District et al. And I think you can see the rest of it on your agenda. So we're going to adjourn to closed session now.
I know.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. I guess we will reconvene into open session. There's no reportable action from the closed session. Next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Do any of the directors want to pull any of those items for discussion?
Mr. President, I'd like to pull number 5. please.
Do I have a motion for the
I'd like
rest?
to move for approval of the consent calendar with deleting number 5 to be brought up later.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous? Okay, Mike, approved director's compensation and reimbursement expenses.
Yeah, just for the clerk, I guess, for one quick mistake on my part. Item number 3 on my report. It says on October 5th, I gave depositions at CMSD. That should be virtual. I did it virtually for the record. My typing fingers went too fast.
Yeah, but-
So with that correction, I'll
oh,
move.
wait. I also need to cross off ISDOC on my report. I think I had 8 meetings and I saw a little check mark and I forgot to. It was after the last meeting. I had intended to go. I did not. Okay,
Those corrections, I'll move approval of item 5.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll go down to public hearings. We can actually go to the general manager's report. Receive and file the results of the citizen survey. Scott, is that you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Earlier this year, the district entered into an agreement with True North Research of Encinitas, California, to conduct a community-wide citizen survey for research and analysis. The purpose of the survey is to seek level of satisfaction feedback from district ratepayers and to assess solid waste ratepayers' level of satisfaction with the current 2-cart system and to acquire their level of acceptance for replacing the 2-cart system with a 3-cart system. On September 8th of this year, the Citizens Advisory Committee received a presentation about the survey methodology and work plan, asked questions, and submitted suggested questions for the survey. On September 14th of this year, the board did the same. The survey is now complete, and now Dr. Timothy McLarney, president of True North Research, will present the findings and results of the survey. So now I would like to turn over to Dr. McLarney, and he will be giving this report.
Thank you, Scott, and good evening, members of the board. Tim McLarney with True North Research. We are a firm that over the last 20 years has specialized in working with public agencies around the state and using surveys to develop a statistically reliable understanding of the communities and the customers they serve. To date, we've designed and conducted over 1,000 research studies for public agencies. And much of the work that we do is what we call customer satisfaction studies, similar to what we're going to be talking about tonight, and that Scott just reviewed quickly, where the goal is really to understand sort of what are your customers' awareness of you and as a district and the services you provide, what's their experience using these services, and also what their opinions and satisfaction are with respect to the service you provide. At the board's pleasure, I'm going to share my screen here and bring up a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll walk you through. Everybody see that, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, great. And as I go through this presentation, which covers the highlights of the survey results, I welcome questions from the board as I go or at the end, whichever is your preference. There is a more detailed report that provides additional information, usually subgroup breakouts beyond what we're going to be talking about here tonight. And so with that, let me go ahead and jump into the survey results. Scott did a good job reviewing, providing an overview of what the purpose of the study was. And so I won't hit on that here in much greater detail, except as he did mention, one of the goals of the study was to understand what are your customers' experiences with the 2-cart system and what are their attitudes about switching to a 3-cart system. So a fair chunk of the survey questions that were towards the back of the survey really focused on that. And we've got some clear indication there as well. So now, before we talk about the results, it's helpful to take a moment to review the purpose of the study, the methodology of the study, or how we went about conducting the survey. Survey was conducted in October, late October and early November of this year, and we wound up speaking with a little over 1,100 customers who receive sewer and trash services for some of them. So not all customers receive trash service, as you know. All your customers do receive sewer. And so What we did to sort of pull the sample for this study is we went to the district's customer database, which is parcel based, because a lot of the sewer customers who may not be trash customers are multifamily parcels. We then unpacked that customer database so that single parcels that have a lot of multifamily units would be unpacked into discrete housing units. We're able to pen some additional information to that file. So we were able to reach out to customers in their natural proportions based on whether they are a sewer customer, a trash customer, or both. Once we had created that random sample, we use what's called a mixed method approach for recruiting and data collection. What that means is we reach out to customers using multiple methods. We could contact them by email, text, and telephone. And we allowed them to participate either by phone or online at a password protected website at their discretion and preference. Survey was conducted in English and Spanish. It's a kind of a long instrument, average 19 minutes for the telephone interview. Now, because this was a random sample of 1,128 of your customers and not a census of all your customers that has what's known as a margin of error due to sampling, in this case, that is plus or minus 2.9%. What that means is we can be 95% confident that the results I'll share with you this evening are within 2.9% of what we would have found had we spoken with all of your residential customers. So on to the results. This first slide, we open up the survey asking a little bit about how aware they are of the district, how favorable are their opinions of the district, and how familiar they are with the district. And so this first slide is the results of the question. Prior to taking the survey, had you ever heard of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District? For being a sanitary district, a special district, in particular, a district that doesn't engage in direct billing, your levels of awareness are quite high. You have 87% of your customers say that they had heard of the district prior to taking the survey. Awareness was a bit higher for homeowners and also those who receive trash service in addition to sewer services. For those customers who were familiar with
Tim, do you have the numbers from the previous survey?
You know, that's one of the questions that was asked. There were a lot of the questions in the previous survey that were not asked in a comparable way, right? So there was an interest in updating the survey to improve the validity and the reliability of the questions. And so for many of these, I don't have the direct comparisons. There are a few in the report that you can kind of look and say, well, it's not quite exactly apples to apples, but it's close enough to make some comparisons, but we don't have the direct one on this.
Thank you.
Sure. So after measuring awareness, we went on for those folks who were aware of the district prior to taking the survey. We asked them to tell us how familiar they are with the district. On this pie chart, what we have done is combined the answers to the prior question with this question so that the pie chart represents all of your customers. And what you see here is that you had about 41% who said they're either very familiar or somewhat familiar with the district. You had about 31% who were slightly familiar. And then you had another about 29% who said either originally they had never heard of the district, or although they'd heard of the district, they're not at all familiar with the district. Here again, we did see that familiarity with the district was generally higher among your homeowners, as well as those who receive trash services in addition to sewer services. Also tended to be a little higher among your older customers, meaning 45 years or older, and those who took the survey in English. And then finally, we went on to ask customers whether they had a very favorable, somewhat unfavorable, or very unfavorable opinion of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District, or if they have no opinion either way. And what you see here is that on the far left, this is your overall column among all respondents. We have about 30% who don't know enough about the district to venture an opinion on this question, right? So although they've heard of you, they don't know enough about you to have an opinion. Among those with an opinion, though, you can see they are decidedly favorable, right? You had about 60% of your customers say that they have a favorable opinion compared to about 9% who have an unfavorable opinion. That's a ratio of about 6-to-1. You do see to the right, we have it broken down according to how familiar they said they were with the district prior to taking the survey. And you can see that as the familiarity with the district grows, so too does the likelihood that they have a favorable opinion of the district, and particularly that they have a very favorable in the district. So the more they know you, the more they like you. So shifting gears here, these next two questions are in some ways the most important slides that I'm going to show you. And the first one here is the answers to the question, overall, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the job the Costa Mesa Sanitary District is doing to provide sewer and wastewater services to your household? And you see that overall 79%, so about 8 out of 10 customers indicated that they were satisfied. You had just 4% who indicated they were dissatisfied, with the remainder being unsure. So very high levels of satisfaction for your sewer and wastewater services. Same question, only this time we're focusing on trash, recycling, and green waste collection. Overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are they with that service? And you see here also we have 79% or almost 8 out of 10 customers who receive trash services indicate that they were satisfied. You had about 19% who said they were dissatisfied, and about 2.5% who said they were not sure or prefer not to answer. Not shown here, but shown in the report. We did ask an open-ended question for those who were dissatisfied to tell us why. And what you found is that the most common reasons were not having recycling bins or recycling services available to them. So as you read the survey results, one thing you do get the impression is that not all customers sort of understand that how the recycling process works with the 2-cart system, and some feel like, why don't we have recycling here? And so that was listed as one of the reasons for not being satisfied. And then also inconsistent or unreliable pickup of trash. So about 37% of those people who were in the dissatisfied column mentioned something about the consistency and reliability of trash pickup.
Tim, this is Vice President Schaefer, Mike. In the folks that were dissatisfied, you said you asked why they were dissatisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any mention of missed trash pickups in any of that?
Well, that's what, yes, there is. That's what I was saying there is, if you took all the people here who were dissatisfied, either somewhat or very, and we asked them to say why, there were really two dominant answers as to why they were dissatisfied. One, which is the most common, was that they didn't have recycle bins or recycling service, right? So this is where I say, I think some of them don't quite understand how the recycling gets separated later on the 2-cart system. And so
Right.
they were saying that that's the reason they're satisfied. They want this sort of dedicated recycling bin. 37%, right? The second most common response was something to do with inconsistent and unreliable pickup of trash. So people, not getting their trash picked up when they're supposed to be, and or not having all the trash dumped out. You see this in a couple other questions in the survey where there's concerns that, hey, yeah, well, they may have come, but I came out and my bins are still a third full or something like that, right? But it was that. So about 37% of those people who are dissatisfied mentioned something about inconsistency in trash pickup. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, we did ask customers a couple questions about how they've reached out to either the district or CR&R in the last year. And so for all customers, we asked them during the past 12 months, had they contacted the Costa Mesa Sanitary District by telephone, email, text, a smartphone app, or in person. And you had about 1 out of 5 customers say yes to that, 22%. We went on to ask those customers who had contact with the district how they would rate staff at the district. Are they very professional, somewhat professional, not at all professional, et cetera, on each of the dimensions you see there on the bottom of the slide. And what you see is staff gets high marks. Keep in mind that most times when customers reach out to the district or to a public agency like this, they've got a problem, right? That there's something that is bothering them in one way or another, right? And they're reaching out with that issue. And usually that's starting the conversation off kind of on a difficult foot, right? And so the fact that your staff can come away from that experience with customers saying, that, yeah, we see them as being professional and helpful and accessible and knowledgeable, that's great. We also asked customers who were trash customers whether during the past 12 months they had contacted the waste hauling company CR&R by telephone, email, text, a smartphone app, or in person. Here you see a somewhat higher percentage had done this, almost a third, right? 32% had done this in the past year. And we asked those customers whether or not the reason they had contacted CR&R was resolved to their satisfaction in a timely manner. And you see that for the most part, 80% of those customers who had reached out to CR&R in the past year indicated yes, that their issue, the reason they called them or contacted them, was resolved to their satisfaction in a timely manner. That said, we also asked individuals, excluding holidays, during the past 12 months, have there been any occasions when your trash and recycling carts were not emptied by CR&R on your regularly scheduled collection day? So this speaks to the issue that was raised here a minute ago. And what you find is about 40%, so 39% of your trash customers indicated yes, even once you exclude holidays, there's been at least one occasion in the past year where their trash has not been emptied on a regularly scheduled day. I will say that there also seems to be a very strong correlation between how customers answer this question and their overall level of satisfaction with their trash service, right? So if somebody said that their trash was occasionally not picked up on the regularly scheduled day, they are much more likely than their counterparts to be a dissatisfied customer when it comes to trash service in general. Okay, so moving on beyond sort of the broad question about trash collection and sewer services, we also dug in with customers to talk about each of the special programs that you see here on this slide. And the first question we asked for each one of these programs was whether they were aware that the district offers these programs. And you can see that there's quite a bit of variation on the slide. The top two here, large item trash collection service, as well as curbside organics, recycling of green waste and or food waste. Both of those programs have very high levels of awareness, 80% and 70% respectively. But once you get below that, the awareness levels fall off pretty sharply. About 16% were aware of the door-to-door household hazardous waste collection program, 12% the Sharps container disposal, 10% the American Flag retirement program, and about 7% the sewer inspection rebate program. Now, having figured out who was aware of these programs, we also went on to ask those individuals whether their household had ever utilized those programs. And you can see that the utilization rates for the first two are pretty high, 39% and 36% respectively. But as you might imagine, if the level of awareness for the programs below was low, that means that the percentage of households that have used these programs is even lower, ranging from about 1% to 3% across those four programs at the bottom. Now, although the rate of utilization for these programs for some of these programs was low, customer satisfaction with these programs is quite high, right? So for every respondent who had actually reported they had used one of these programs, we simply asked them to tell us whether they're satisfied or dissatisfied. And you can see that satisfaction ranged anywhere from 87% at the bottom to 96% at the top. So among those who have utilized these programs, they're very happy with them. It's just that the awareness level and use for some of those programs is a bit low. So as promised at the outset of this presentation, that we were going to have a series of questions related to the 2-cart system as well as the 3-cart system. And so the first of these questions, first we sort of described to customers that the district currently uses a 2-cart system where trash and recyclables are placed together in one cart and green waste and food scraps are placed into a separate organics recycling cart. And overall, are they satisfied or dissatisfied with the 2-cart system? And you can see that more than 2/3 of customers indicated that they are satisfied with the 2-cart system. You had about 15% who were dissatisfied, and the rest either saying they don't have an organics recycling cart or they prefer not to answer. Now, for those customers who said they were dissatisfied with the 2-cart system, we went on to ask them why in an open-ended manner. They got to tell us in their own words what it was that was troubling them. And then we went back and looked at those verbatim responses and grouped them into the categories that you see here. And you can see that, as I mentioned earlier, there seems to be a little bit of confusion among some customers about how the recycling process works in a two-cart system. The top complaint about the two-cart system was that there's no recycling bins or service provided. About 25% mentioned that. Another 25% mentioned that they want, that the bins are unsatisfactory in some way. They either want more of them, they want better bins, they need larger bins. And about 16% just said we need better recycling bin information and process. So here we are again, there's a certain percentage of customers who obviously aren't clued into, how the recycling works. And for some of them, that's the issue. So after that, we went on to sort of introduce the three-cart system. We said that although the district currently uses a two-cart system for trash and recycling, California, new regulations from the state of California may require that the district move to a three-cart system where the household will have one cart for discarding trash, one cart for recyclables, and a third cart for green waste and food scraps. Do they support or oppose moving to a three-cart system, or do they have no opinion either way? And you can see that although previously we found that most customers were satisfied with the two-cart system, we also find that a majority are supportive of moving to a three-cart system, 58%, with about 30% saying they oppose, and the remainder being unsure. For
Wait, sorry,
I'm sorry. Go back.
this is Brett Eccles, just a quick question on the that slide and the previous one. So from the questions and then the answers that you all received, seemed like the satisfaction was okay. And then the dissatisfaction, the two-cart was bigger, better, more type carts. Was there a differentiation between, do you truly understand what the three-cart is, or are you just looking for more trash bins, basically? Was there a little differentiation?
You do see that it's kind of a bottom line is you're going to have some customers who prefer the two-cart and some customers that prefer the three-cart, right?
Right.
And you do see that some of the customers that aren't as happy with the two-cart because of the lack in their eyes of a dedicated recycling bin, they do tend to gravitate towards a three-cart, right, solution, right? But then you'll have customers who are happy with the two-cart solution that when they get to the three-cart, some of them, as we'll see here in a minute, have reasons for why they don't like the three-cart, right? And so both of these systems have their supporters. Like there's a lot of customers who would go with either, right? They're happy with either. And then there's some who clearly prefer one or the other.
And the reason why I ask is just from my experience and people who've talked to me, a lot of people want their bigger bins back. So is that's what I'm kind of wondering. Is it so much, oh, we really want the recycled bin, or do we just want more bin space? And
I see
that's
what you're saying. I think that's this group right here. So, about 25% of those who said, I don't like the two-cart system, right? They mentioned, I want larger bins, I want better bins, need more bins, right? So that's probably a capacity issue versus the other two statements there that are more about not sort of, I guess, understanding how the recycling process works and feeling like maybe the recycling isn't being done as well because it's getting lumped in with the trash, right? So you're getting a mix of both.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we saw the support for moving to a three-cart system. For those who oppose moving to a three-cart system, here are those open-ended responses as to why. And here you have kind of that group who's taking the opposite perspective, right? We had certain customers who don't like the two-cart system because they want more bins and capacity. When you ask the folks who were dissatisfied, who don't want to move to a three-cart system, why, you get about a third who mention that's too many bins to store or move, or it's going to be difficult to, have parking around these things. You have about 31% who basically said they don't want to separate in materials, right? So they're kind of comfortable throwing it all in the trash bin and letting somebody else separate it. And then 19% mentioned that, the current two-cart system is fine. It's not necessary to change, right? So this is again among people who said that's about 30% of folks who said they didn't support moving to a 3-cart system. Now,
Tim, before you move away from that, nobody mentioned, I mean, when you talk about a 3-cart system, we get a lot of input, not from the public, but probably from other electeds and things that say, we don't want 3 trucks on the street because it's going to do more damage to the infrastructure and the roads. Nobody mentioned that at all?
my suspicion is that something that doesn't really occur to the average person, right?
Yeah.
That we're looking now at 3 carts. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, three trucks.
I mean, we hear that a lot. I mean, people say to us,
Mhm.
you can't put 3 trucks in one day on a street. It's going to ruin the streets. And so it's interesting for me to look at this chart and realize, I think you're right. I believe you're right in that the public just isn't aware. They're not even sure there's going to be 3 trucks. They might think that one truck is divided into separate. Maybe CR&R could get trucks that have 3 distinct areas in them, right? They're shaking their heads no, I guess. That's not gonna happen.
These figures don't even account for the city trucks,
That's right.
you know?
They don't account for the city.
They don't
trucks.
count for the city's pickup system.
Yeah.
Okay. So now one of the interesting questions that was part of this sort of discussion and motivating, quite frankly, the discussion around a 3-cart system, we wanted to provide a little background to respondents. So we said, we first asked them before we introduced the 3-cart system, approximately what percentage of their household's total food waste is placed in the organics recycling cart. So way over here on the left, you see the current distribution. The easiest way to look at this is I usually take these 2 bottom boxes here, add them together, and you see you've got 21% of your customers who are currently placing 50% or more, right? At least 50% of their food waste in the organics recycling bin. We then, for the middle column, introduced a little later in the survey, the idea that when dumped in a landfill, organic waste such as green waste and food scraps generates a lot of greenhouse gases and contributes to a warming climate. Next year, a new state law will go into effect requiring that a high percentage of organic waste be recycled to better address climate change. So with this new law in place, approximately what percentage of your household's total food waste do you anticipate placing in the organics recycling bin? And so when you introduce the concept of the new law, you can see that support goes up. You've got about 38% here of folks who say that we're going to put at least 50% of our food waste in the organics recycling bin. This final column is when we introduce a little tack on. We said, and by the way, the new state law also requires fines be issued to households and businesses that do not place their food scraps in organic recycling cart. And knowing this, approximately what percentage of your household's total food do you realistically anticipate placing in the organics recycling cart? And you can see that you get a bit of a bump, right? But even under those scenarios, you have a little less than half here, right? 46% who said that they would put at least half of their food scraps into the organics recycling bin once that new law takes effect. So it gives you a sense of what amount of behavior change you might anticipate from folks after the new year. Switching gears yet again, we informed customers who are trash and recycling customers that single family homes currently pay $21.45 per month for trash collection and recycling services. Do you think this amount is reasonable, too high, or too low? And what you see here on the slide is there is a pretty widespread recognition among your customers that what is being charged for trash and recycling services is reasonable, right? 71% felt that way. You had just 50% who said that's too high. I can tell you that I'm in a different part of Southern California with my office, and I think I pay $52 a month, something like that. And it's technically residential services, so more than double what we're seeing here in your community, and that's reflected, I think, in this pie chart, right? That most customers
You live in Beverly Hills?
reasonable. I do not. I live down in North County, San Diego. So We also, though, for those customers who were sewer customers, which is everybody, right? We informed them that single-family homes pay $7.70 per month for sewer services, and which is also one of the lowest rates in Orange County. And would they support increasing the sewer rate to $15 per month, so basically doubling the current rate, in order to provide the funds needed to repair, maintain, and improve the sewer system? You had 42% of customers who said, yes, I would support that, about 32% who did not support it, and the remainder being unsure. So all in all, considering you're kind of hitting them cold turkey, that's not bad. And obviously with sewer rate increases, I believe normally if it's under Prop 218, it's a protest vote. I don't know how it would work on your case because it's tied to your property taxes, right? Okay. And then as we wrapped up the survey, we did ask a couple questions about communication. One of which was, in the past 12 months, have you visited the Costa Mesa Sanitary District's website? You had about 22% of folks say they had in the last year. And when we asked them to tell us how satisfied or dissatisfied they were with the information available on the website and the level of transparency it provides, you can see that you had high levels of satisfaction. 70% said they were satisfied, just 6% who said they were dissatisfied. So as I've gone through all these slides, by the way, we're just giving you kind of the overall pie chart picture, right, for all your customers. In the report, there's a lot of breakdowns by different customer subgroups, so you can see, which customers tended to go to the website, and if they're, how did satisfaction levels range across your subgroups. So that information is available. So what does all this mean? I go into detail in the report, so I'll be brief here. I think the first sort of takeaway, considering this is a customer satisfaction survey, is to understand kind of how we're doing as a district, right? Overall, what do your customers think of you? And I think this is a very positive report card in that respect. We saw that the awareness levels for the district were quite high, 87%. This is, again, high for a special district, particularly one that doesn't do direct billing. And we found that among customers with an opinion of the district, the favorable opinions outnumber the unfavorable opinions by a ratio of 6 to 1, right? So that's all good news. We saw that, the vast majority of your residential customers, about 8 in 10, were satisfied both with your sewer services as provided, as well as your trash recycling services. For those who had reached out to the district in the past year, staff received high marks for their professionalism, accessibility, knowledge, and helpfulness. And CR&R appears to be doing a good job in terms of sort of converting customer reach outs, which usually are, customers have a problem of some sort, into satisfaction, right? That 80% of the customers who had reached out to CR&R in the past year about some issue indicated that the issue was resolved to their satisfaction in a timely manner. So that's all good news. That's just a positive report card. Like any customer satisfaction survey, it should be a little bit about how are we doing today, but also a little bit about where can we improve in the future. And there are a couple opportunities that popped up, areas that popped up. Improvements in trash collection, mainly in terms of consistency, thoroughness, and cleanliness. What I mean by that is we saw in there that customers who were, there were some, customers who had experienced that, hey, our trash isn't getting collected on the day it's supposed to, that can lead to overall dissatisfaction with their service. And also some customers were complaining that, their trash bins aren't getting thoroughly emptied when they are getting picked up. And so that's one obvious opportunity area that can be worked on. And also increasing customer awareness of some of those special programs that you offer. We saw that, the customers who were aware of those programs and use them had very high levels of satisfaction, right? They like the programs. The challenge really is that for several of those programs, the levels of awareness are just low. And so helping customers become aware of these programs, I think will, to the extent that they then use them, that's going to be a plus in terms of their overall interactions with the district and will lead to greater overall satisfaction in general. And then finally, key conclusions regarding the 2-cart or 3-cart system. As we talked about before, I think, we found that most customers express satisfaction with the current 2-cart system, and that the complaints about that system tend to focus on the absence of recycling bins, perhaps a little bit of confusion about how the recycling process works for the two-cart system, and a desire for better and larger bins, possibly just more capacity. But we also found when we introduced the three-cart system that the majority of customers were interested and supportive of switching to the three-cart system. Those who were not tended to be concerned with just the need to store more bins, or just didn't like the idea of having to sort through materials and preferred just to be able to dump it all into one bin as they are currently doing for the most part, or they just felt that the change was unnecessary. And so with that, I end my presentation. I welcome any additional questions or comments from the board.
Do any of the directors have further questions?
That's real nice.
I noted your point about the potential way to change behaviors is education, and the state has given us 2 years to educate the public about the new legislation and the potential for fines, and that'll move the needle, to get the behaviors, some of the behaviors changed. I was a little amazed with how little that needle moved. It didn't get up to more than, I think, 60 or 70%. Anyway, any
Yeah,
other comments?
and we did insert the word realistically into that question, right? So we were, we didn't want people to tell us what they aspire to do, right? We asked them to tell us realistically, how much of the food waste you're going to put in. And so I have a feeling that tempered it a little bit, but probably gave us, again, a more realistic vision of where they sit currently. The other thing to your point is I think it's just a change in we've never had to do this to this point, right? And so it's a change in the way people behave, and sometimes before they make that change, it seems a little weird. After a while, it can become habit, right?
Arlene?
I just wanted to compliment you. It was a good report.
Thank you.
I had no questions because you were good.
Thank you.
I did, Bob, quick question. Tim,
Speak into the mic.
it was interesting on our special programs, and you picked that up and mentioned the fact that the least known programs have the highest level of satisfaction, right?
Mhm.
And so back to what President Uten said about education, do you think it's well, it is an opportunity for us to reach out to the public with those beneficial programs, and through education, would you see if more people get involved, will that level of satisfaction go down?
I doubt it, right? I mean, I think what you're seeing is people have, among those who are aware of it and then had a need to use it, right? They are very happy with that program. So, I mean, unless getting more activity in those programs somehow makes the quality level go down, right? For one reason or another, I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. I would expect that, those are the kind of programs that people, when they use, are going to continue to express a high level of satisfaction. I think so one interesting thing would be, again, to try and promote those programs, raise some public awareness of it, which would in turn raise some use of it, right? And I know that the district does these studies periodically. The next time we come around and do this, it would be great to see that, the awareness is up and the use is up, and then we'll be able to track the satisfaction. But I think those are the kind of programs like Sharps Container. My son's a diabetic, for example, and we have that program, and it makes a difference, right? And you appreciate that if you're somebody who has needles in the house, right? And it has a way of, that one program has a way of sort of changing the way you think about, the larger services that you receive from an agency.
Yeah, and the fact that the levels were so low in terms of people being aware of those programs, I can't help but think that's just another byproduct of the pandemic. I mean, all of those programs require some personal interaction, either with staff or somebody. And so the level of those special programs being used has probably been diminished
Hmm.
is again, a byproduct of the pandemic that it seems to be kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, well, I mean, but neat thing is, right, there is this opportunity now moving forward to kind of rebuild that level of awareness. The other thing, some of those programs are obviously just for your trash customers. They're not, only one of those programs we tested really was probably marketed to your sewer customers only. But again, they're all well received by those who know about them and use them.
Mr. President, I'm seeking direction from the board tonight, now that you know
Your constituency stands and position on the two card system. Do you want to bring this back and say something to the card system or satisfied with the results on the two card system? Choice. Choice, absolutely. Can't say the two card system. In charge of the issue affairs is the contribution issue.
And just so you're aware, the audio cut, when you change the picture, the audio cut to a way that I can barely hear. I don't know about other users.
So that's what I'm saying. Do you want to have the same session that you start working with some of the teams that have that session on the two card system? As long as those.
We would like to see us. I'd rather be prepared with the facts of a 3-cart system than to ignore it now and then get slapped in the, you know what I mean?
yes.
I'd
yes.
rather have all those cards on the table to look at before we have to do anything with it.
Sure. So my understanding, you want to have that discussion on the 14th.
I would think it'd be appropriate.
I just wonder, as follow-up to Vice President Schaefer, I mean, if we have it on the 14th, are we going to really have enough information to make it even worth our while, though?
I'm not, it's to begin the discussion. You don't have to make a decision on the 14th, but I think at the very least, or maybe you can direct staff to start negotiating with CRNR. If you believe the 3-cart system is the right way to go, we can start those negotiations with them. You've got a lot of information from this survey on what your constituents are telling you. So we can use that information. We're hearing, they want larger carts, or we're hearing that they don't believe we're recycling because of the 2-cart system. Will the 3-cart system help improve that? There's a lot we can discuss about. Or there's another option we can do. If you want, we can kick it to the solid waste ad hoc committee and have them kick it around for a little bit.
I think the whole board needs to be involved with it personally.
It's a big shift. It's a huge shift. Sorry, Bo. And I agree with Director Eccles that maybe we're not going to have enough information on the 14th, but at least we need to start the dialogue. This is not going to be a one meeting decision.
No, absolutely
This is
not.
going to be
Right.
This is going to take a while. So at least getting started and getting some input from CRNR, and at least let's get the dialogue started so that we can move forward with it. That's what I think.
The questions, Bob, if I can. Okay. What direction, do you know what direction the city's going with their cart system?
All the cities, excluding city of Costa Mesa?
No,
or-
the Costa Mesa or Costa Mesa City. What direction are they going with the carts?
Good question.
Because right now they just do,
Yeah,
commercial. But are they going to be required to go with an extra cart?
I don't know.
Okay,
They're
then,
going to have to get involved with organics.
They will.
Yeah.
No,
and then I have one last question. When we first started the program with organics, if people didn't want them, they didn't have to get them. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then how many people, do we have a total of how many homes that don't have them?
We have a list. It's quite extensive, yes, and they would be required to have an organics card now. There's no, we can no
like this.
longer exempt anyone.
I would like to see that information when we discuss it too,
Mr. President, one follow-up, Scott, because you mentioned the bigger cart, because if you could include that in this presentation, because I just, again, I suspect that's part of what's going on in the survey results. So if we could look at that as well.
Yeah, I'm very interested in, what advantages the Clean MRF has. I think it's substantial, and that would require a 3-cart system.
You have a presentation.
Oh, you-
President,
normally when you, if you're going to speak, you need to turn in a card, but
I was just going to comment on the item of the 2 carts versus the 3-cart system and what Costa Mesa is doing. We have a non-exclusive agreement for all commercial businesses that operate, and our non-exclusive agreement effective January 1st will require us to provide our multifamily customers that have cart service that they have to have 3. And that is what the city is dictating, that everyone will have to have 3 carts,
3?
3 carts, multifamily.
So part of Costa Mesa is going to have 3 carts, and until we decide, we're going to have 2.
So they have a choice. They can use dumpsters or they can use the residential carts. And if they go with the residential carts, they will have to have 3 carts. They want it separated.
And that's what the city of Costa Mesa.
The city of
decided.
Costa Mesa, and it's for all non-exclusive permitted haulers will have to offer that service.
Julie,
Yes.
one of my questions is, those could be 3 little carts,
Correct.
and will the 6 franchised haulers pick up those 3 carts, or will Costa Mesa Sanitary?
Separate trucks.
And
No,
separate
the non-exclusive haulers for commercial will pick up those 3 carts.
And that starts January 1st.
That'll start, it's being phased in. Cal Recycle is being very supportive of cities and districts that are, as long as there's a program in place, they have ordinances approved, and the Cal Recycle can see that they're making progression to get with that. Organics collection can be implemented anytime during the year of 2022, and no city or district will be fined.
So the city would be doing family as well as multi,
No, multifamily
sorry.
only.
commercial.
Commercial, yeah, so even
Commercial
a business,
and
they can have a cart
multi-family.
if they wanted to. It's whatever choice the business wants to use.
If all these multifamilies decide to go to dumpsters, does that mean everything gets put into one dumpster?
No, we still are required to have 3.
3, so they'll have 3 dumpsters on their property.
So a lot of them,
Yeah.
a lot of apartment complexes have room for multiple bins.
Yeah,
Again, it all comes back to what we were talking about, education.
Mhm.
Those bins will be divvied up, trash, recycle, and organics, even in
did the-
apartments.
when did
It's
the,
gonna be a
ci-
tough job.
when did the city of Costa Mesa decide this?
They've been working on it for about 1.5 years.
Was it taken to a city council meeting or?
Yeah, it was,
Yes.
they have an ordinance. It's all
Yeah, they
spelled
have
out in their
ordinance.
ordinance. It's actually in your staff report. You can click on the link to their.
They've been working on it for about 1.5 years.
See it. Okay.
So they just went through this in November, I believe.
That they took it to the council, but it's been a long process, as every other state or every other city in the state. Everyone's been working on it.
So, Mr. President, I'll speak from experience. My HOA, that's somehow I'm now leading. I don't know why, but I am. But we contract directly with the hauler. We now have 3 dumpsters on, we have home, single family homes, but all in one HOA. 3 things. And let me tell you how much fun those discussions were with all of our HOA members. But yeah, 3 color bins and 3 trucks come multiple days. It's like trash comes every day now.
Are those individual homes in your complex? So they have 3 in individual homes?
Not in each home, but in a common area we had to build.
Oh, so you
You've
had to
got
build a common
3
area.
You got it.
'Cause
So,
we just
yeah.
have the bin service. We don't have a common area.
right. Yeah, it's a challenge, no doubt.
Well, I think, does staff have direction?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. President.
It'll be an interesting discussion, and then, because the Air Resources Board is involved, they're much more tenacious than most state agencies.
You know,
And I think we probably need to be briefed on, I'm not sure any of us have read what the resolutions and propositions that the city's passed. We're aware of them, and we probably should read them. You're living it, beginning to live it.
I wasn't aware, but that's my own fault. When they talk about a big when these people want a bigger can, how big a can? Is it like,
90.
They want 90. Most of them have 60, 64 gallons. They want 90 gallons.
the big giant ones?
Wouldn't be
They
that,
they can
I
get
have 2 of
those.
those if anybody wants to. I don't really use it. If anybody.
wouldn't it be 90?
Yes.
I think they're 95, but
people come over your house.
No, no.
do any, Mr. Mosher, you want to speak on this item?
Oops.
Yes, thank you, President Uten. My name is Jim Mosher, and I did turn in the card.
Yep.
Returning to the survey, first question I had is in the agenda packet, there's a 57-page report that was posted, and I'm wondering if the district got any additional information, in particular, the report is all in terms of percentages. Did they get a more detailed report showing how many actual people answered each of the questions rather than just the percentages? First question. Number 2 comment is Dr. McClarney has mentioned about the reliability of the survey, which is of course important to you. And as a scientist, I always like trying to check things. There are a couple of things in here that could be easily checked. For one of them, the most obvious, is the one where people responded that they had no organic cart. When and it said that was 11%. So the question is, does that agree with the district's record? Is this a reliable answer or not? Because sometimes when people answer surveys, the survey is telling you what the answers will be compared to if you asked everybody in the district, but the answers may not be totally reliable or honest, I should say, because people sometimes try to answer things in a way that will please the person asking the question or the opposite. So is 11% correct? And then also it said 22% of everybody that they talked to said that they had contacted the district office here during the last year. And by my calculation, that would be like 37 new people who had never called during that year, each working day. Is that an accurate number or not? And then final comment regarding the 3-cart system that you were just talking about. I have no position about that since I get CR&R trash service from Newport Beach, which is moving to a 3-cart system. But I would point out, number one, the majority that Scott talked about is not a huge majority. It was 58%. And as Dr. McClarney said, some of that 58%, well, as Director Eccles said, some of them is people wanting larger carts. Part of that 58%, as he pointed out, is apparently also people who thought there is no recycling going on currently, and that the 3-cart system would be the only way to participate in a recycling program. So it's number one, not a strong majority, and some of the people in that majority may be misinformed as to what they were being asked about. Thank you.
Scott, do you have any answers for that, or?
I'll try to, if I can remember everything, all the questions. So the first one, or when Mr. Bush talking about, is 37 people contacting the district. Well, I think you have defined contact. You know, when we say contact, we don't mean just calling us, right? You can contact by email, contact in person, contact by phone. So when we say contact, we're saying everything inclusive. Is it 37 people are contacting? I don't know. I just don't have that. I don't have that number. But when we're saying contact, it can be any kind of contact. Where we get the 11% is correct. Again, I don't know. I'll have to check our data. I don't have an answer for that. And sorry, I forgot the first question was regarding, if you can remember me, what was the first question? Tim, did you hear that first question?
I didn't
So-
hear it.
I'm
Can you
sorry.
repeat it?
Sorry, Mr. Mosher.
Well, I think Mr. Mosher's question was, you used percentages in the survey results,
Right.
and not actual people.
Right. So we have 1,128 customers and respondents that are part of the survey. So and every trash customer, right, would receive all trash related questions. The sewer customers receive all sewer related questions. We normally don't include the frequencies in the actual graphics because quite frankly, they get really busy, right? And frequencies are only relevant in a lot of ways if you're, then you're going to want to basically figure out what percentage does this number represent of the total number that received this question. And ultimately, we tend to find respondents want the percentages, but we do obviously can provide frequencies if that's of interest to the district. It's just normally not something that's requested because like I said, it makes the graphics really busy.
Do any of the directors want to further comment on that or other questions? And I think that we can move on to the next.
She has a question.
Oh,
Fill out a
I know.
green form, but in our area, we all had metal cans at one time. And a truck came and it was kind of dark, but a lot of the neighbors were out. And the truck was just dispensing cans. And that they said, no more of those metal cans. It's all these plastic cans. And these are for the green waste. And that's for the other stuff. And we have sizes. You can have whatever you want. And however many you want. And we wound up with 3 cans. We have 2 large cans, the 90, and 1 green waste can. And so we already have 3 cans and they're different sizes, the 2 big ones. And do we paint some color on the 1 can that means really good things you're going to
The code enforcement guy will get you if you paint anything on your can. So.
oh, okay.
No, I think the lids will be changed.
Or another can would be provided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Will they take away a can?
if that will probably be up to the resident.
Because I don't always use all of the cans. Sometimes I use all of the cans for green waste. Because they have a lot sometimes, if I clean up my yard well.
Sure.
Okay. And the big part was we didn't have to pay for those cans. Will we have to pay for new cans when you deliver?
Well, that's part of the discussion about whether we go to a 3-cart system or not.
Yeah, well, when you went to this system that we have, we didn't have to pay for them,
That's true.
okay?
Just on the tax bill.
That's when we
You had to
own
pay on the tax bill for your services.
We pay for the services.
Yeah, that's part of the cost.
Yeah.
Is the cans, the size of the
Well,
cans?
not for the cans, but if we may have to go to additional cans, it could be increase the fee. So I'm not sure. We haven't talked about it yet.
I was just going to suggest, I think we probably have to have this discussion on December 14th.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed it yet.
That's why I asked about costs and things.
Some of our neighbors have 4 or so cans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think they pay for anything over two of a particular type of can, so.
Well, one neighbor has at least 4 of the green waste.
Yes.
Wanted you to know it's going to be complicated.
Yes, it
You
is.
didn't know that before.
Are we done with this discussion?
You.
Oh, are the directors done with this?
Yeah, yeah,
discussion?
move on.
Yep.
Okay.
Kim, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay, we're going to the number two, the 2G. Consider adopting ordinance number 133, implementing requirements of Senate Bill 1383, mandatory organic waste reduction. Do any of the directors have questions or comments on this?
I'll move for approval.
Mr. President, sorry, normally I'm all about speed, but I did have a question
Go
or
ahead.
two.
Go ahead.
First, Scott, actually, first question, there was, I believe, some comments from Mr. Mosher and our CAC without going through every single thing, were most of those either incorporated or addressed in this final draft?
Yes, it was. But even in this final draft, Mr. Mosher submitted some additional comments to you, and I'll turn it over to district council to respond to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. President, Director Eccles, Board. Before you tonight is the district's organics ordinance. We are required to adopt the ordinance that complies with state law and recently adopted state regulations by January 1, 2022. The ordinance was originally prepared by Michael Ballier, who the district hired to write the ordinance. Mr. Ballier did so in coordination with his contract to do the same for the city of Costa Mesa. The ordinances are supposed to be consistent somewhat, and I understand he went through a process to accomplish that. As such, we are not writing on a blank slate, but we are trying to make the ordinance work as written. Mr. Mosher has submitted some comments about how the ordinance, in his opinion, could have been written better. Mr. Mosher went through a very thorough effort, has found a problem in our ordinance that I will propose a fix for. Otherwise, the ordinance may have too many definitions, and in some places may have benefited from other definitions, but those definitions are in the state regulations. And the ordinance does work for the most part. Sometimes a definition is there and you wonder why it's there, like with the recycled paper content, and that's because we're required to buy recycled paper. Not working. Oh. So we should have had an ordinance, but Scott informs me that we do have a resolution or a policy that requires the recycled paper purchase, so we didn't put it in the ordinance. So it looks like it's out of place, but it really has a purpose. In I'm going to recommend the ordinance to you as presented with one major change, and that's in Mr. Mosher's second point in his memo. He correctly points out that the definition in CC, prohibited container contaminants, subsection B, improperly makes waste contaminants prohibited container contaminants. This probably came about because the ordinance had both 2-carts and 3-cart systems in it, and they were trying to make it consistent, and it didn't work very well that way. So I will recommend that we delete subsection B of that definition, and that subsection C be defined to state, instead of excluded waste, it should say prohibited materials as defined in section 701-070. And with that interlineation, I would recommend that you adopt the ordinance. Thank you, and I'm available for comments.
I have one follow-up question on that. Thank you for that clarification. On the fine system, can you just walk me through that? I mean, we basically stagger from 75, 150 on up, and differentiating that between the 250, and kind of walk me through that.
Sure. We have adopted the system from the administrative citation statute. And so it's 3 tiers. The first tier is a fine not exceeding $250 for a first violation. That's for all the violations that might be under this code for which administrative citation, except that a violation of our code about you failed to put your container away, or a violation of the organics ordinance is subject to a fine not exceeding $75. So if you adopt this ordinance, you have reduced the fine for those two offenses only, left in place the up to $250 for a first offense, all the other offenses that the district has.
Okay.
Section 2, I'm going to go through the same thing. It's going to be the same system. Up to $500 for any violation, for a second violation, except if it's about placement of containers or an organics violation, you would be reducing it to $150. And then tier 3, of course, is a fine not exceeding $950 for a third violation, except placement of cans or organics violation, you would be reducing that fine to $300.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I had the same question. When we adopted these administrative fines, they were adopted when we had, say, food service establishments that were routinely having SSOs. And I think they were for much more egregious behaviors than the organics law 1383. So what I would like to do is go back and review those fines, the administrative fines that we have in our ordinances, and separate them. Our code enforcement officers out, and these fines are sort of ridiculous in my mind, the level of them, for so many of the different offenses. When you're violating, when you have a sanitary sewer overflow, that's much more dangerous to the public than, having your carts in public view, or not having your food waste on top of your organics can. So I'm in favor of this ordinance, but with the recommendation that we go back and look at the purpose of those fines, and better delineate, and not, I guess this delineates it for me, but it was hard for me to understand, I think, just like Director Eccles. These fines are just, they were for very egregious violations. And we set them in place because we had restaurants and different things that were having sanitary sewer overflows, and we'd bring them in, and they after they requested hearings, I didn't feel like they were listening. And so so that's why we established this fine levels in the first place. And so many instances where I don't believe they're appropriate anymore.
I would like to offer a substitute motion to the original motion. That substitute motion would be to approve. Now, there's no number on the ordinance. It just says XXX. So I don't need to include that in my motion, I guess. But I would move that we approve the ordinance relating to SB 1383 with the changes as recommended by district council.
I'll second the motion.
Just a question on.
Is
the
that a
motion.
substitute motion?
Yeah.
Art had
I
originally,
didn't get a second.
he didn't put, Art didn't include, the original motion didn't include the changes that
Oh.
the council.
Right.
talked about.
And a question for the maker of the substitute motion. So what President Uten, I think, is suggesting is maybe tweaking these fines. Am I correct, President?
Well, to make it more clear, I had trouble understanding
Right.
whether it was $75 or $250 because the $250 was mentioned.
My understanding of President Newton's comments were to go, he'd said he would support the ordinance and then come back, have staff come back to us later with changes to the file. That's how I understood his.
That, and Alan, is that acceptable to do?
Mr. President, if we'd like to bring that whole subject back to you about fines for other subjects. We're
Right.
on organics tonight, but
Right.
yeah, we'd like to
Yeah.
present that in a study session.
Okay.
Okay,
How the
yeah,
fine system
that's
works.
what I was asking. I was trying to ask.
Got it.
Makes sense.
We have a substitute motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Hold on. Do we need public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mr. Mosier had requested to do public comment on this item.
Thank you again, President Uten. My name is Jim Mosier. First of all, I wanted to say I think this ordinance being presented to you is a lot better and clearer than the ones that have been presented to the city council in Costa Mesa and Newport Beach, although they have a much more complicated problem because they have to write an ordinance that applies to residential, commercial, and all the possible variations of those. And you only have to write ordinance that applies to the service you preside, curbside residential service provided by CR&R. So it's a simpler task. And I also wanted to say I have considerable respect for your district council, Mr. Burns, and the advice he gives you. I am a little puzzled, though. He is reading, well, first of all, I think he tried to explain very clearly to you these fines of $250, $500 and so forth do not apply in any way to things regarding the SB 1383 violations or to the placement of carts. And so those were intended, I think, for things like you were saying, repeated sewer overflows and things of that sort. Problem I have is he seems to be reading from something different than I find printed in the agenda and what was posted. The copy I have says for those non-SB 1383 fines, it says the fine will be $250 for the first violation. It says the fine will not exceed $250 for the second violation. And it says the fine will not exceed $250 for the third violation.
That
So
was an original, if I could interrupt, that was an original ordinance.
Well, yeah, the red line
Yes.
version has
so that,
Few versions back.
yeah, so I think you need to make clear in your motion tonight, if you are recommending this that is printed and posted for your meeting tonight, or you're recommending restoring the $500 and the $950. Because the one that's here that Nolani would be instructed to publish has 250 on each line. So I think that needs to be corrected.
I ran your ordinance off, and that's what I was reading from, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many versions we have floating.
The one I'm reading is 250 across the board, but
1, 2, and 3 all say 250? Okay, that's the wrong ordinance. Yeah, and I'm reading from the one you sent me, so I don't know how.
I'm looking at the red line and the master.
What are the fines supposed to be? Can we,
What I just read to you was the correct, that's the way it's supposed to read.
which my motion approved what you had recommended. So what you recommended is what would be in the motion, or it would be in the ordinance, correct?
and that would be the $75 for the first fine, the $150 for the second fine.
But also these 250s, there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
discrepancy,
I
250.
see the change. It's, yes, it should be.
It's a shame that they're in there, that's in there.
See the changes.
Well, here's mine.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have, yeah, we have a couple of different versions.
Yeah.
Do you want the motion to delineate what those fine numbers are? Will that solve it
I think we
Yes.
have enough in the record.
based on your recommended changes? I'll call for the question. then.
Do we
There
have a
was-
problem because it wasn't posted correctly? That's what Mr. Mosier's saying?
No, no,
Ordinance is, as long as you have an ordinance before you, you know, it doesn't matter which version, as long as the subject matter of the ordinance was there for the debate that you're having. So as long as it's clear about what your change was, then I don't think there's a due process violation. Like the last case on the Brown Act came out, so it doesn't matter. You can amend the ordinance or the agreement, as long as you had the agreement in the record to work on.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't know how that happened.
I think my motion addressed the concerns that the ordinance will reflect. Before it gets to signature, it'll reflect what those amounts are.
75, 150, and so on. So is everybody clear on what we're voting on? We have a motion on the floor.
Wait a second,
Yeah,
Mr. Mosher
right.
finished.
But no, sorry, Jim.
Yeah. I'm also grateful that your district council corrected the inadvertence that accidentally made it a violation of the code to put recyclables in the mixed cart. I believe he corrected that. And the other inadvertence that I noticed is in making this SB 1383 revisions, the definition you had of trash, the trash was not supposed to include tires, things like that, which is unrelated to SB 1383. That I think was inadvertently deleted. And I'm not sure you actually want to delete the definition of trash because that's used elsewhere in the operations code to say what you're allowed to put in the mixed waste cart, trash, recyclables, and so forth. So I am guessing that was Mr. Ballier inadvertently deleted your definition of trash, not realizing its significance in the rest of your operations code. Thank you.
President, if I may, I do thank Mr. Mosher for pointing that one defect in the ordinance out. That is very much appreciated. But I think the trash was probably deleted on purpose and because it's kind of surplusage and the way they changed all of the mixed waste is now what trash used to be, I think. And, you know, it's all about organics and then recycling and then mixed waste is the other. So I think it was intentional, but we're both guessing what Mike Ballier's intentions were. And none of us know that. I think the ordinance works.
And if we approve it tonight, it's, you know, and we find needed revisions, it can be revised.
This will be a 2-year learning process on how everything works, and we'll certainly bring it back to you if we have something wrong.
Okay. So there's,
Call for the question.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much for a very diligent discussion. And we're going on to item number G3, giving the general manager the authority to auction one forklift. Do any of the directors have questions about this item?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Review and comment on CRNR's Environmental Services Christmas Tree Recycling Program. Item number 4. Do any of the directors have any questions about that?
Mr. President, we have a presentation to give on that, on this item. There's a presentation to give on this item.
Okay,
So first off, let me introduce Julie Beretta, the CNR's Regional Vice President, will be given an oral report regarding the Christmas tree recycling plan. As you might recall, last year, due to driver shortage as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, residents experienced a significant delays having their Christmas trees collected from the curb and recycled. The district received 101 complaints regarding delayed Christmas tree collections. Staff believes the number could be much higher. Board of Directors requested CNR to give a report tonight on how CNR will ensure delays will not be repeated from last year. On July 14th of this year, the Board of Directors established a goal for CNR to reduce the number of missed Christmas tree collections by 95% from 2020 Christmas tree recycling program. To achieve that, to achieve this goal, the district will have to receive no more than 5 complaints on the Christmas tree recycling. So I'm going to turn over to Ms. Beretta, and she's going to explain to you their plan for the Christmas tree program.
Julie?
Good evening, Mr. President, Vice President, Directors. Glad to be here this evening. I would like to just piggyback on what Scott had mentioned. I actually gathered some statistics coming here tonight. The majority of our issues we had last year were COVID related. From April 2020 through October of 2021, we had 496 employees that called out for COVID related. Either they were exposed and had to quarantine, or they themselves tested positive. So 496 employees, 42% of those 496 employees actually tested positive. So we struggled like every other business that you've heard about. Surprisingly, being that majority of the drivers are in the trucks alone. But again, when you're around family or other folks, you just don't know. So we really do not foresee that same issue happening again this year. But the precautions that we are taking is number one, we are hiring temporary labor for all of our organic routes. So we'll have a helper in the truck with the driver just to help expedite the route. If the Christmas tree is not in the cart and it's something that has to be picked up off the ground, the helper will get out and help the regular driver. That's not something we typically do, but we will do that this season. The second is we have reserved some additional flatbed or box trucks from Penske, Ryder, Enterprise, and we will have those trucks in our yard within a couple weeks. Again, to use that just in case if we were to have a breakdown, we have the backup trucks. And we'll also use those for any escalated issues. So if we get a call from a customer or from the district, we will disperse the stake bed or the box truck that does not have to be a Class B driver that can bring those trucks out and to service the customers. And lastly, we use a third-party company today to help us out with bulky item pickups. And we have also reserved them as well to use as a backup. If we see we have a shortage of drivers, we'll pull them off helping on some of our bulky collection, not necessarily in the city of Costa Mesa, but we also have them as an additional backup that will put them on Christmas tree collection along with picking up bulky items if we see that we might need that. Like I said, we really hope a lot of our drivers are vaccinated due to the new legislation passed by President Biden for businesses that have 100 or more employees. That timeframe has been extended till January for us as OSHA is trying to figure out, I believe, how they're going to manage that process. But we do have a lot of drivers that have been vaccinated, but we don't have that number yet because we haven't went through the process of asking to determine who needs to supply a weekly test versus those that are vaccinated. And we'll have that after the first of the year. But we do continue to have some labor shortages, as I'm sure you all see on the news every day. Anyone in the logistics industry, we're competing for drivers. Our drivers to drive a trash truck have to be Class B, but some of our drivers also have a Class A. Just last week, we lost 2 really good drivers, not that service the city of Costa Mesa or the district, but just drivers have been with us for a while. We lost them to go to the ports. They have Class A license and there's a lot of money being paid for drivers. And so suddenly we're in this competition. Driving a trash truck isn't as sexy, I think, as driving an Amazon truck or working for UPS or FedEx. So we've experienced some changes that we haven't before, but maybe we hope also that they realize the grass isn't greener and they come back to us, and we will willingly take those drivers back because we have a lot of good employees that have thought, wow, let me test the market and maybe I'll try something new. So anyway, that's my report. I will add that if you know family or friends that are looking to be a driver, they can apply on our website or also Indeed.com. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question about,
Art?
and maybe Scott, or what is the last day that someone can put their Christmas tree out?
Oh goodness, I wish Nabila was here. Mike, do you know the date? It's 2 weeks following. 2 weeks following Christmas.
Normal, yeah. So if we get a
We usually
complaint
have it-
after that,
We usually have it a little bit longer than that. Ours is a little bit longer. I think ours is like more in the middle of January.
Well, January, I think it
Yeah,
is.
ours is a little bit longer.
okay, so should we publicize that?
We're
Or
doing it
whatever
right now. Yes.
Okay, so
yeah.
because people put them out afterwards and they complain it's not picked up. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's what happens.
Right.
And then you said only 5 complaints, but you mean 5% of the total population, right? Not, you said.
No, just so 95% of the 101 complaints. So in order for it to achieve that goal, we just 5 complaints. We got 101 of the whole community last year. 101 complaints.
Is that, I don't know if that seems fair personally, but
Nabila just told me January 7th is the deadline to put their Christmas tree up. So, okay. Did I say Nabila?
Huh?
Nalani, sorry. I always say, sorry. I always have. I don't know why I always call
Say
Nabila.
what was that? Those masks, those masks.
Yes,
Okay, which is 2 weeks.
And last year, one of the issues was the city had a different date for Christmas tree
Yes.
pickup
Yes.
than the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. And it was 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. And a couple of my neighbors looked on the website, the city's website, to find out when the Christmas trees were picked up rather than our website. So they're, you know, someone needs to coordinate with the city to make sure they're not doing the same thing this
Correct.
year.
Correct, yes.
And I
I'll
guess,
make a note. We'll
I guess
check
it's
with them.
I guess it's large multifamily that the city picks up the Christmas trees from.
I have a question. Now, when you talk about complaints, if someone calls, say my tree hasn't been picked up and it's still within that time frame, CNR can still get picked up.
Yes, yes,
So it's after that time.
yes, correct,
Okay.
correct.
Because we don't want to put the burden on them for,
Correct.
you know.
And quite frankly, after that time, if residents can cut them and put them in their carts, we'll still take them.
Yeah, but if they can't say that.
They can't maybe pick up
people just
separate?
Throw them out on the street, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Will you still pick those up if they put them out on the street?
If they put them out, they have to be scheduled so the driver knows because we wouldn't have,
Okay, different truck.
yeah, it's a different truck.
Craig Rickles.
Thank you, Mr. President. So question whoever wants to jump in, but thank you for being here. And I think all reasonable people understand last year is last year and all that. So my big thing is communication. So just looking back at last year, obviously driver shortages, and that's going to continue this year to a certain level. It's the communication. So I noticed on the staff reports talking about the website, because last year what was concerning was trees were out there for weeks on end, and that's the problem in my opinion. So if a street, like we're going to schedule then, if I assume, let's just say this square mile for Tuesday, is that what we're talking about, Scott? Like, let's just say streets of Eldon and Monte Vista and blah, blah, blah are going to schedule to pick up on Tuesday. Am I understanding correctly?
Regular day.
It's, they put the Christmas tree out on their collection day.
On the collection day. And so,
Right.
but if that gets altered, what's the plan to notify residents that, hey, we can't, it's going to get missed? So I guess that's my question.
I think two things would happen if I could add, Scott. I think we'd handle it even if how we handled something today. If we know that we had a driver shortage, we had one this morning, we had 2 drivers call out in Costa Mesa. So we had 6 other drivers trying to help cover the route. It would be the same scenario. So we would notify the district. So if they get an email through the app or a phone call, they could communicate to the customer, but we would handle it the same day that we would get it the next day.
Okay.
So we'll handle it kind of, we would do with a missed collection or a missed bulky. We plan on coming back the next day. There is no waiting and doing a sweep.
Okay.
We want this, and I will say, we probably, Scott, we haven't talked about it, but we could maybe have an extra meeting that week, whether it's Zoom. We have 2 meetings a month with the district staff now, an operations meeting and another meeting. So we're meeting twice a month. But I'm happy if we feel like we want to meet maybe during that first week, just to do a touch point to say, how do we think things are going?
That's perfect. That's what I was looking
Schedule.
for. So thank
We'll do
you.
that.
And then one other question for Scott, I guess. In the staff report talks about mailers. What are we mailing out exactly?
I'll turn it over to Nolani.
Okay, there you go. You're learning.
He does it to me all the time. So we have a quarter page and a full page flyer that's going to be going out to the residents via MailChimp and through our other subscription email services. We're also going to be providing those same flyers to the private Christmas tree retail places. So the ones throughout the city, will be giving them to let them know to have those out to the residents who are picking up.
So that's where that
That's a
$3
great idea.
grand or whatever it is, that's gonna go to Bob's Christmas tree lot.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Noonan's.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you. All right.
So you guys have this, you have Monday-itis just like every other business, don't you?
We do, very much
You, my
so,
staff
very much so.
posting on Monday.
And it doesn't seem like a lot. Last Monday, we had 7 drivers call in, but that's 7 drivers with 700 homes on their route.
Wait till next
You
Monday
can't
after
recover
Thanksgiving
from that.
weekend, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
A question about so if they put their, if they put their tree in a bag, you don't pick them up, right?
Not supposed to be in a bag.
We better tell Noonan's and Home Depot and everybody, because they do, they sell them,
They sell those
bag.
bags.
you know? Okay.
I would say, or we recommend that they can I get it, take it out of the house so you don't have the needles all over the house, but once it gets to the curb or in the cart, they got to tear the bag off. That's a really good point.
Too much work. I mean, once
is
you
a
do
lot
it,
of
you do it, right?
Yeah, no, there were a lot of them in bags. I walk a lot in the morning in different parts of the day, and there were a lot of them in bags at the curb, waiting to be
Ronnie.
picked up.
Did you get that? We could add that to our list of things.
No bags.
Don't bag it. It's too bad the campers in Glamis don't come up and you know what kind of bonfires they could have in Glamis over the weekend?
Don't say that.
Are we done with this item? So we reviewed and comment, no action required. Jim, you had something else on your thing. It was J1. I can't figure out what J1
Attorney's
is.
report,
Attorney's report.
attorney's report,
Oh,
so
oh.
that comes up.
Okay, got it. So we go on then, engineers reports.
It is.
Show and tell. Yes, all right.
All right, if you can go ahead and bring the presentation up, that would be great.
Thank you, Julie. Mike?
You guys.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you for your patience tonight. This is an award. Well, I'll say it's, I'm asking you to consider rejecting one of the bids and make an award to another contractor along with providing the standard 10% contingency for us to work with when we're working on this project. But I will say thank you for your patience because I want to provide a little extra information just so that you understand why we're making the recommendation to reject one of the bids. So this is a project 328, phase 2. And phase 2 basically consists of removing rust and other deposits from the ductile iron pipe. And then we install I'll say a structurally rated, cured in place pipeline. We did phase 1 this past spring. So this is the second phase. I'm trying to get caught up this year so that, and in fact, we want to do phase 3 this spring to finish up before June. So I'm hoping that by June, I'll be caught up with all the ductile iron phases so that we don't have to worry about leaks, at least from these critical pipes that we're working on right now. This is go back. This is brand new ductile iron pipe. Looks really good and clean. Go to the next slide, please. Why do we use ductile iron pipe in sewers? Well, in the old days, if we had to cross above a water line, we would use ductile iron pipe. We'd make sure that any joints were outside of 10 feet away from that water line. We also used it at drainage channels. In fact, one of phase 1, this isn't our phase 1, but we had to cross a channel over by the Hooters restaurant. That was kind of a critical one to get ductile iron to get refurbished. And then sometimes if there was a shallow sewer crossing a major street like Harbor Boulevard, we tended to design ductile iron pipe instead of clay pipe. Today, we don't do that practice anymore. If we need something to cover loads, we'll basically put a sleeve in and put a sewer pipe through a sleeve as an example of instead of using ductile iron pipe. Ductile iron pipe really isn't a very good sewer pipe. Next slide, please. And this is why. What happens is sulfuric acid that's formed in the sewer system, it's part of the biology that goes along with sewage.
and it creates acid. The acid starts to leach the iron and other materials out of the ductile iron, and we get this, I'll call it tuberculosis. Or, for example, this is the top of a ductile iron pipe, and the acid basically eats out the top of the pipe. Next slide. What we need to do then with our pipes is there's several tools that are used, and it's basically, these are cleaning tools. So this is, they call them chain flails, and there you see a chain, and this device spins around 10,000, 20,000 revolutions per minute, and they start to slowly insert it into the pipe, and those chains basically eat away at the rust and other debris that might be accumulated on the inside of the pipe. Then what they do is they insert a liner into the pipeline. They have a curing device, and it can either be like ultraviolet light or it could be pressurized steam. And then they insert a camera, and we get to look at that camera to make sure, or the video to make sure that they've properly installed the liners. Next slide, please. This is cured in place pipeline that was installed in a pipe that it had the top of it eaten away. And go ahead, Director Eccles, if you want to take a look at that. That's a piece of cured in place pipe that can completely replace a piece of pipe that we have. And what Director Eccles has is this inside white thing that's formed into the inside of a ductile iron pipe. I don't know if you want to pass that down to Director Schaefer, but he wants to take it home. He's got a new toy now. He could put his golf clubs in there or something.
Clean, right?
But basically what that is, what that device is, or what this liner is it's some type of a textile, wool, fiberglass. There's other reinforcing. They put resins in like you use on surfboards, and then you use that ultraviolet light to cure that and make it hard in about 30 to 45 minute time period. Next slide, please. Our project, basically, we have about $1.15 million. With phase one and then the design work and some of the work that we've already done on phase two, and we're again going to be starting on phase three shortly. We've got about 820,000 and some change remaining in this project. And that phase two, this project that we're talking about tonight, has 29 locations throughout our service area. We have, here's the 13 areas that those 29 locations are located in. And the estimate, project engineer's estimate on this project was $420,000. And our current low bidder is $256,589.15. Next slide, please. Yeah, I gotta say it because it's in their bid, right? This is the part that I want to bring to your attention. Why are we talking about rejecting the low bidder? The In Situ Form Technologies Incorporated was the low bidder. Their bid price was $238,723. And coincidentally, that is, well, if you do the math, it's $17,000 less than the next lowest bid. I will say that while it's a good bid, they only acknowledged one of three mandatory addendums. Addendum one was basically an addendum to extend the deadline because we had to address some questions and deal with some other issues that the vendors were bringing up. Addendum two is we answered the questions from the pre-bid conference. And then the third addendum was we had required a 7.5 millimeter liner. All the vendors were basically saying that it's easier, quicker, less expensive to install the 6 millimeter liner. And since structurally we could use a 6 millimeter liner, they would recommend that for our project. And so the In Situ Form Technologies, they acknowledged addendum one, but they did not acknowledge addendum two and addendum three. I wish they had acknowledged it because when you go from a 7.5 millimeter to a 6 millimeter liner, you do save a little bit of money, both in installation and our cost. Now, that being said, all three addenda, I don't know why I put an S there, but addenda were received email by In Situ Form Technology, and they, I guess, in situ form, we have email read receipts for the September 29th, October 19th, and November 1st addenda, which this one was a September, this is addendum 2 was the October, and addendum 3 was the November email transmitting the addenda to the various bidders that we had. Now, after the bid was opened, In Situ Form Technologies did acknowledge via email to our engineering consultant that basically they did receive the 3 addenda that was emailed out. Somehow, I guess they were emailed to the person that responded or that it registered for the bid package, but that person never provided the addenda to the person preparing the bids. I guess if you have a large enough company, I guess that can happen. So after reviewing the bid documents with our consultant, with our legal counsel, and ultimately our general manager, I've decided to recommend that we basically reject In Situ Form's bid, even though some people can consider this as a minor, I'll say, flaw in their bid documents. But that being said, next slide, please. I guess I would like to recommend that we reject the In Situ Form Technology Inc.'s bid as non-responsive. I further recommend to make an award a contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Sancon Technologies Incorporated, in the amount of $256,589.15. And I would furthermore request that you consider approving a 10% contingency for things that pop up when they pop up. I will say you can't always see all of the sewer pipes because sometimes the videotapes get rejected. And when we go in there and clean them and put the camera in, we'll see things that we didn't know about. So that's what we use the extra money for. I will say that I have worked with In Situ Form on many occasions. They make a good product, they're a good contractor, and I really hate to reject their bid, but based on being non-responsive, I'm making that recommendation. Questions?
Yeah, Mark, just a couple, was there a bid bond required on this?
Yes.
So they're going to lose their bid bond on?
No.
No.
Not if we reject it.
Okay. And then it looked like addendum 1 was whatever. Addendum 2 had some RFI answers.
Yeah, during the mandatory pre-bid meeting, contractors basically came in and they were asking several questions. I didn't bring a list of the questions with me, but I'm going to guess there was 8 to 12 questions, and we answered all of those questions. And then if I recall, the last one was basically hold on a second. The last one was to relax the liner thickness. So that one was a technical issue that to me was kind of important. And I believe it would have led to a lesser bid with In Situ Form had they acknowledged that one.
Which is what was leading me. My next question is, okay, we reject the low bidder. We're going to pay a little bit more, but if you rebid this, it could be less with that addendum 3 in theory.
Yeah, I suppose that's very possible. You could do that. The alternative motion would be to reject all bids, and then we go ahead and rebid this project.
And then, as someone gone through this, it's usually when you submit a bid, it's if you didn't see the addenda, too bad, so sad kind of thing. Like that's the point of a bid bond and things like that. So in this instance, is Instacon or Instaform, are they saying, well, we're comfortable with our bid irregardless, or boy, we got stung on this one?
No, in the email that they provided our engineering consultant, they basically acknowledged that they did receive the addenda, even though he didn't use them in preparing his bid. He was very comfortable offering this bid price to us nonetheless.
Okay. All right. And last question. What leads you to your overall recommendation? Technicality is technicality. Is there any legal ramifications, or could we award to still the low bidder? What led you to this recommendation?
Well, let me take a stab at it, and our legal counsel will probably make a correction to what I say, but as you mentioned, even though it's a minor technicality, we do have the right to reject all bids, and you being a contractor, you've been exposed to that, and you've probably had that happen to you.
Never.
Okay,
Yeah. No,
It
yes,
happens.
have.
We all make mistakes, as evidence as some of the items tonight. You'll see the
Definitely.
little typos here and there. I have them in my presentation, so I apologize for that. But that being said, we do have a right that we could overlook minor anomalies in the bidding documents. So legally, I suppose we have that right. We don't like to exercise that right unless there's something critically here. And because there was only a $17,000 difference, I know 17,000 is a lot to me, but when you look at the price and protests and possibly legal challenges going forward and the precedents that we set, because if we, I guess, forego or ignore or forgive the bidding abnormalities now, the next person's going to say, well, you give it to him. How come you didn't do it to me? So with that, I'll turn it over to legal counsel if you want to add anything to that and the legal ramifications.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. President, Director Eccles. I think Mark said it exactly correct. We have the second lowest bidder who said, hey, they made a non-responsive bid. And so they're, thinking about challenging. We have pretty much absolute right, if it's non-responsive, to say it's non-responsive. We don't have to hold a hearing or anything if it's non-responsive on its face, and we're in pretty good legal position. We also could have a right, if it doesn't give a competitive advantage, to waive a minor irregularity or defect in the bid. But if we do that, we've exercised discretion and we're vulnerable to a lawsuit. And then the issue becomes in court. Was it a minor variance? Did he have a competitive advantage? So basically, we're pretty bulletproof by rejecting. If we exercise our discretion, we may be sued and not have as good a position. And you can see there's 17,000 in the balance. And maybe the lawsuit would cost 17,000. I'm not sure. So it's a little bit of a judgment call, but this is the conservative approach.
And that's what I thought that's what it was getting to, because, and even on the lesser level, just a bid protest is kind of a nightmare to go through. That's not even a lawsuit. So for those who don't know, a bid protest, it's not something we want to get involved in. It causes problems. So thanks, Mark and Alan.
Next slide.
Oh, Mark,
Yes, President Newton.
did the specifications say that the contractors had to acknowledge all of the addenda?
Yes, the specifications mentioned that, and the addendum, each addendum mentioned that. And it was specifically required by both sets of documents.
Okay. Do any other directors have any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the recommendation to reject the apparent low bidder and award to the next responsive low bidder based on the presentation and for the reason of not having a bid protest and potential other legal issues.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mark.
Don't forget your pipe.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to, Mark, you have a second item on, does anyone have any questions on the receive and file of capital improvement project status report? Okay, then we go on to treasurer's reports. Mark, are you here?
Not here, Mr. President. No reports tonight.
No report. Attorney's reports. Consider adopting resolution, which is a standard one, for authorizing remote meetings. Do any of the directors have any questions on this item?
You have public comment.
Okay, Jim.
Thank you again, President Uten. My name again is Jim Mosher. And I just wanted to express the hope that in adopting this resolution, the board intends to use it with great discretion. As I tried to make clear in writing, you have the right to hold remote meetings at any time that you want. And this is actually waiving a noticing requirement to tell the public that you're planning to attend a meeting remotely. I think all of us would agree better decision-making happens when people are in the same room together rather than on a screen. And I can imagine that we may have a resurgence of COVID that would cause you to need to use this in the future, or one of you might get ill or something. But barring those circumstances, if it's just a routine item and you want out of convenience to not come to the meeting, I really think you should follow the normal procedure, which is to let the clerk know so it could be on the agenda that you plan to attend remotely, which is the normal plan. And that is my hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I think certain agencies put this on the consent calendar. I believe Orange County Sand District does. You might check that. It's a routine.
What I read in one of the documents that I received. Is that correct?
If you don't use the remote meeting exception, then you'd have to go back to the teleconferencing law, which.
Right, exactly. That's my
understanding is then
point.
You'd have to notice each location you're participating from. There'd have to be an agenda. The public would have to be able to participate. It's pretty cumbersome.
Right.
I mean, we've worked it before with the member that went to Iowa, but otherwise, it doesn't work very well. So, yeah, this would keep this alive if we need it. Obviously, tonight, we don't seem to need it tonight. There could be a flare-up, and it's okay to put it on the consent calendar, but it does require findings. So to adopt this remote resolution. So you do have to make those findings. So as long as on the consent calendar, it's clear that you're making those findings, then you could put it on the consent calendar. But it's not just a pure ministerial action on your part. You have to make the finding that either there'd be a danger to those attendees, or that you're still recommending social distancing. Those are the two findings you're required to make. And of course, the governor's order has to be in effect too. So, and it is.
Would you recommend it staying where it's at?
I think it's better to just keep it this way.
I think
Show
so.
the public that you're
Right.
considering it every time.
Right.
And it might show
I think-
transparency, I guess.
Okay.
Mr. President. Just one follow-up. I didn't hear all of Mr. Mosher's comments, but I read the comments. I mean, if this thing were somehow, if I'm sitting on my couch every month, I mean, the board is going to look at this every single month and we could revise it at any point, right, Alan? So we could revoke it if it's being abused or the public, is thinking we're doing something we shouldn't be, right?
And also, you can adopt this resolution and you have the authority and say, yeah, but I don't want to use it. I want a full live meeting.
Right.
And that's just in case there's a flare-up, and there's no flare-up.
Great. Thank you.
And you've given the manager the authority to do hybrid and all sorts of things. So
And is this, is the law, does it allow it just to go on forever?
it's a sunset, I think, 2024.
24, okay.
Hopefully we're out of this by then.
Yeah. Okay,
I'll move approval of resolution 2021-948.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? unanimous.
With one absence.
And one absent, yeah. Okay, we're going to local meetings. The first meeting is Orange County Sand District. And they're building a GWS expansion from 100 to 134 MGD, and they're offering tours. And then I think it's to be done in 2023. They're probably 60% along in the project. There are many CIP projects, and most of them were related to the rehab and rehabilitation and soul sourcing. And there was a lot of discussion at least at the operations committee meeting of a $5 million research that staff was proposing to either enhance the destruction of solids in their anaerobic digesters, make more digester gas, and have more digester gas to make more energy, or alternate means of destroying solids. That was to be brought back at the board meeting because there were a lot of questions, not only the amount of the cost of the pilot project, but many other things. It was not brought back to the board, so I think it'll probably be on the operations committee next month. Do any of the other directors, Art, you attended SARFA?
Yes, I think Bob attended it, also representing Orange County SAM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to give a quick report on that. It was a virtual meeting. All the minutes were approved from the last meeting. Our advocate from Washington DC, Jim McConnell, wasn't present to give his presentation or over the phone. So he did it in writing and it was read by Herb Nakasone, our director. And what it stated was a number of things. 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill passed by this federal government. Orange County Public Works is working with the Corps of Engineers right now for the construction of the Westminster Garden Grove project. In that project, which is $1.3 billion, 75% of it has to be funded locally, which is going to be a burden. And 25% is only going to be funded from the federal government. And, you know, the December 3rd is the deadline for the appropriations bill to be signed by the federal government. And hopefully it's going to be signed by then. If not, we'll see. Funding to the Santa Ana Mainstream project is secure. That's the El Prado Dam and the area behind it is still secure, and they're still working with they have the money for that right now with the Corps. It'll take a year to do the cost estimate for the Westminster Garden Grove project, but the county is going to be starting on construction before the funding gets approved because they have funds right now to do that. To get all of the money for this Westminster Garden Grove project was going to take 5 years. You know, so. And then Westminster Garden Grove project will be built in segments based on how much money they have at the time. In the state of California is zero in their subvention money that's going to be repaid back to the county for the purchase of the land, but they still have to get, I think there's 48 or 49 more segments of property that have to be purchased before they can finish all of their deadlines. Let me see, I got one other page here. Thank you.
The 75% county funded part of the project, though, will means it's substantially more acceptable than the projects that are looking for 100%. And that's firm right now. That is the present agreement.
Yeah, then the rest of my presentation, the Santa Ana Mainstream and Westminster projects shown, they were shown by video to all the attendees. And the overview from the Santa Ana Mainstream from the Orange County Public Works is spillways to be completed by 2024. Completion of the whole project is 2027. It's going to be a 5-year monitoring and fiscal closeout from 2027 to 2032. And then there's 49 more properties need to be purchased. And then Herb Nakasomy's report. They're going to be meeting with Michelle Steele and Lou Correa over the Christmas holidays to let them learn more about the projects needed for funding. And then he looked at the dates for next year for 2022. And the rest of the things I'll present in the handout I give to Nolani. That's my presentation, Bob.
Director Schaefer, is Doc.
Okay. On on ISDOC, this was October 3rd, and we discussed our general meeting that we had. And at that meeting, we did it by Zoom so that we talked about what we're going to do for the January meeting. And it was discussed that MODOC is still under construction, and they're still trying to get everything done, but they don't think they'll be done by January for us to go to an in-person meeting. So because of that, we'll probably be having that on Zoom. So we're kind of looking to see what happens. And I announced that we're having LAFCO, our CEO, at our next ISDOC meeting, Carolyn Emery, and she'll be the highlight speaker. And then the other speaker would be Costa Mesa Water District as our special district. And then the associate member will just be announcing it in the flyer when that comes out. And then on the 12th of October, I went to the study session. And then on there, this is the rest were all Zooms. October 13th, Alliance meeting, professional development meeting. I felt that I had too many meetings and had to be here for the study session, that was important. So I decided I'd just, instead of flying up there, just go by the Zoom. And then the ISDOC general meeting was also by Zoom, and that was a board meeting on October 25th. And that was our general one, which some of you might have attended. And then wrapping up CSDA, sorry about my voice. You can tell I've been talking too much. Wrapping up all the old committee meetings with CSDA, we're kind of looking at what we've begun and what we should be doing next year. And we announced our new committees. I'm a new committee of membership, and then I'm also on the professional development committee, along with the Alliance Committee and the working group, Ledge Committee. And CSDA has done very well this year, even though it's been so upside down. We've had 102 new members just recently added to, so that's 2021. And we have 62 regular members, 13 associate members, 27 business associate members, and 35 joined through our new program, which is called Pay What You Can. Because there's a lot of people that they like to have membership, but they can't afford us. So we're saying you can pay as you can. And that's 98% is retention. And CSDA is doing well on National Special Districts Coalition. It's called NSDC. We now have 7 states that have joined us, and we have 4 that we're going to be talking to. And we have a lobbyist that we have hired for Washington, D.C., so that we can be recognized as special districts. And it's working great. So that's about it.
Okay, and SDRMA, Vice President Schaefer.
Yeah, we had our board meeting early in November, and really the two big things of interest for all of us were, we had reports from our excess lines carriers, both for property and liability and workers' comp. And believe it or not, the rates are stabilizing a little bit. That's not a guarantee that our rates are going down, but the big thing with the excess line brokerage right now is cyber coverage. Cyber coverage is becoming virtually impossible to get. I think, Scott, we had a case that we didn't turn in a claim or anything we didn't lose anything monetarily on our attack, did we? But cyber and ransomware and all those things are becoming huge. So stay tuned for that one. The other big item is we renewed the contract of our CEO, Laura Gill. For those of you that were here, if you remember, 3 years ago, I think it was, we lost our CEO. We actually let our former CEO, we released him from his duties and hired Laura Gill, and her contract was renewed, and we're looking forward to, she's done a great job for us. And, I think you'll all be happy with that. So other meetings, since that's the next thing on the agenda, on the 10th of November, I think I've already mentioned this to most of you, but I attended the Southern California Waste Forum. Not the SWANA Forum, Gina. It was the Southern. Poor Gina. I kept saying, I'm not getting any details on the SWANA. Well, it wasn't SWANA. It was somebody else. And again, I think if I'm being redundant, I apologize, but I primarily wanted to go to hear about enforcement on 1383. That was their keynote topic. And they talked virtually nothing about enforcement. I mean, it was gloom and doom from the waste haulers regarding 1383. They talked about the two big things that are causing them to be in trouble. You might well imagine the first item was the unavailability of driver. They can't get drivers. We've already heard that. The other thing, and I don't know where this came from, but the guy from Republic, who was the keynote speaker, talked about how the price of steel has really hurt the waste haulers. Now, I kept thinking, what does the price of steel have to do with any of this? But my guess, and maybe Nabila, who was there, also would know. Nabila. I'm thinking the price of steel was the recycle cost that they get from steel. So apparently that's way down. I don't know. But you go to these forums that are mostly put on by waste haulers, and it's interesting to listen to these guys moaning and groaning about how much money they're not making.
So this was a commodity. Steel is a commodity.
Well, that's what I'm guessing now, but when I first was listening to him, he never really explained it. And there was a lot of interaction, a lot of talk by the speakers that I was able to listen to about the cost of recyclables going down, but they are recovering a little. Cardboard apparently is coming back a little bit, but they kept talking about the price of steel, and I couldn't figure out, is it because they're building new trucks or something? But then it dawned on me that it was the recyclable commodity of it. So it was an interesting forum, except that it was in Ontario, and driving to Ontario in the morning is like driving up the 405 in the morning. So that was it.
Mr. President, could I add something? We recently renewed our policy at the other sanitary district I represent, Home Gardens.
Yeah.
They have a little special district insurance agency out there called Gladfelter. I think they're national, but they're kind of like a small district. They have the cybersecurity coverage. They actually specify what extortion they'll pay. And it's almost like, I didn't think you could pay extortion, but they actually have it, how much they'll go.
That's where they're going with a lot of this. What's really throwing the tempest in the teapot, if you will, is with the ransomware and what's being demanded by some of these people and the easy accessibility. I mean, the underwriters are looking at this and going, okay, what are you doing to protect yourself from this ransomware? And the IT people go, I don't know, what do we do? So That's interesting that they have extortion limits on there. I don't know. But if you want to operate, you're going to pay and get rid of it. So maybe they're going to pay with crypto.
Oh, it
coins.
is. They want payment. in
That's how they
cryptocurrency.
want payment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Really?
I've paid that before.
So that's how they're affording to rename their.
Goes to Russia.
Really? That's how they're affording to name SoFi State or Staples Center crypto. They're changing the name of the
Bitcoin is one of
Staples
them.
Centers.
No, there's that Bitcoin though you're talking about.
I don't.
Well, Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies.
One other quick meeting. I had the pleasure Saturday of attending a meeting where UCLA football just beat the tar out of the USC football.
Strike that from the
Does
minutes.
that count?
I agree.
Deference to the red and gold down there.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I have, Bob.
Anyone else need to report on a meeting? Okay. Old business, is there any old business? New business. Do any of the directors have input on any new business? Actually, then we go down to oral communications and directors' comments. Do any of the directors?
Yeah, I'm on a roll.
No, no more of the game stuff.
I am very happy to report to staff that the porta potty on Bermuda Drive is gone. Drove by there the other day and it is gone. So you can let David know if you would that he doesn't have to go down Bermuda Avenue. It's gone. The other thing is when we were doing the citizen survey and the one slide, remember when he talked about how the sewer assistance program had very little participation? Is it time for us to go back to the plumbers and get the plumbers? Remember how when we did the sewer lateral program, we had all those plumbers come in, and I'm not advocating we get a bunch of plumbers in here until all this stuff is over, but I think we need to maybe rethink about going back out to the plumbers and saying, hey, we have this program that no one's taking advantage of, and see if we can.
I think it's a great idea. Seriously.
I mean, they're the ones that are gonna.
Because we're communicating with them and letting them know what's going on.
Just a thought.
Well, I think at our last liaison committee meeting, both Mesa and the city mentioned that they have pretty expansive means of communicating social media. So, and basically they're using it for emergencies. So both the city, they have very expansive databases that they can communicate if there's an emergency.
I know Mesa Waters promoted themselves as being able to do that with
Yeah.
notification.
And I was wondering if we have access or should have access to those systems, do we? And are we only allowed to use them in emergencies, or are they part of our social media? And just both the city and Mesa? Well, a road closure, I think.
I didn't know. We have access to we can get permission from the city to use their system. I haven't reached out to Mesa Water, but for the city, I can.
Is that a reverse call system?
It's a system there's a system they have that they can reach out to residents on emergencies. So I have the contact person in the police department, and I have a cell phone number, all this stuff. So if we need to, it's easy contact.
So I thought Raja mentioned that it was, potentially for road closures and things other than, I don't consider that an emergency.
Right. Yeah, we would primarily use it for like if there's a.
I'm just wondering if we could use that as in doing any press releases. I think I had noted under the organics program that I'm interested in continuing to develop, and I think staff is well on their way, more notification methods of getting the word out on the programs that are not very highly used. I think I think we just did get some more, or we did just publicize the HHH Household Hazardous Waste Program. So I'll be interested to see if that helps notify people that program is available. But any other program, any other meetings that we need to meet on? Or no, I guess we're past that. I guess we're down to oral discussions. Is this meeting ready to conclude?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Is the next study session of the 14th, is that in the morning or? Oh, okay,
8 o'clock. yeah.
okay.
I
8
I just
o'clock?
had one last comment.
Sure.
Well, first, happy Thanksgiving. And as always, thank you to staff and sitting here, listening to all of us pontificate. So thank you for sticking with it. It was a good meeting. Well, at least Vice President Schaefer. And great to see Alan in person, and thank you for all your work for this meeting. And then, Mr. Mosher, I think added a lot of value, and I appreciate a member of the public keeping us on our toes. And I think we ultimately created an ordinance that works and is on par. So thank you for that, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
You're adjourning, Bob?
Yes, meeting is adjourned.
Actually, it's called Happy Giving Day now.
Giving Day.
No.